Hold on, Gabriel, move out of the, can you move out of the way a little bit? Can you just move out of the way a little? I just want to get a photo. All right, Marina, big smile. There we go. All right, good afternoon to all of you. Just a quick programming note. After you're done with me, we will be joined in person by our guest, Paul Heslop, who you know is from the UN Mine Action Service. He is the UN Mine Action Advisor to the resident coordinator and the UN country team in Ukraine, and he'll of course brief you on what is going on in Ukraine in that regard. Also, as a reminder, in case anyone had forgotten, tomorrow, Friday, is an official UN holiday. We will be closed for Eid al-Adha holiday. You're always welcome to come into the building, but nobody else will be here. And of course, we will remain available to you guys online. I have a trip announcement to share with you. On Sunday, June 8th, the Secretary General will arrive in Nice, in France, to take part in the 3rd UN Ocean Conference, co-hosted by France and Costa Rica. On Monday, the Secretary General will deliver remarks during the conference's opening session. He will recall the progress achieved since the last Ocean Conference in Lisbon and call for investments to fully realize the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, which is, as you know, life below water. The Secretary General will also use this opportunity to urge all countries to ratify an agreement on marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction, better known by its wonderful acronym, the BBNJ, and to also call on member states to agree this year on an ambitious and legally binding treaty on plastics pollution. The BBNJ will enter into force 120 days after its 60th ratification, and to facilitate this process, our colleagues at the Department of Legal Affairs are organizing a treaty event during the Ocean Conference. At that event, all member states who have not yet done so will be able to formally deposit their ratification. While in Nice, the Secretary General will have meetings, bilateral meetings with both co-hosts of the conference, and that is President Emmanuel Macron of France, as well as President Rodrigo Chavez Robles, the President of Costa Rica. We also expect him to have a number of bilateral meetings with other delegation leaders and members of civil society who will be at the conference. On Tuesday morning, the Secretary General will conclude his program in Nice with a press encounter, which you will be able to watch on UN Web TV Live at 5 a.m. New York time, or recorded a little bit later. And a day ahead of the UN Ocean Conference, we will mark World Oceans Day. And in his message, the Secretary General calls for the protection of marine biodiversity, the rejection of practices that inflict irreversible damage, and he calls on the delivery of the promises of the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement. This morning, the Secretary General spoke at the annual memorial service for UN staff who have lost their lives in the line of duty over the past year. He paid tribute to the 168 men and women who lost their lives in 2024. He told you this morning that in the past year has been especially devastating in Gaza, with 126 of our colleagues killed there, and 125 of those were serving with UNRWA. Mr. Guterres said the sacrifices of all 168 of our fallen comrades everywhere is a tragedy, adding it is also a reminder of the responsibility carried by every United Nations staff member every single day. He said that as we mourn those lost, we must also recognize the living, the thousands of UN personnel who serve around the world today, carrying out the mission entrusted to them by the country that make up these United Nations. Turning to the situation in Gaza, I can tell you that we continue to send supplies bound for Gaza to the Karim Shalom crossing. Today we sent just over 20 truckloads of supplies, which were mostly food assistance as well as some health supplies, to the Israeli side of the crossing, and that number reflects a limit imposed by the Israeli authorities. OCHA stresses once again that after 80 full days of blockade on the entry of aid and any other supplies. People in Gaza are starving. This demands the urgent opening of all crossings and allowed unimpeded access for humanitarian organizations to deliver aid at scale through multiple routes and to all areas where people require assistance. Our partners tell us that more than 90% of families in Gaza lack the cash needed to buy what little food remains available in the markets. Meat, dairy, vegetables, and fruit are nearly absent from people's daily diets, and eggs have once again disappeared from market stalls. Yesterday, Israeli authorities continued to deny humanitarian movements that require coordination. Out of the 16 attempts to coordinate such movements, 5 were rejected, including trucking water, retrieval of nutrition supplies, and relocating fuel stocks. 6 other missions also weren't accomplished, either because of impediments or because organizers had to cancel them, which very often happens for security or logistical reasons. The remaining 5 missions were facilitated and accomplished. Those missions allowed partners to screen children for malnutrition, provide medical services, and carry out assessments. However, none of them involve the delivery of supplies, which are so desperately needed, as we've been telling you. Meanwhile, supplies continue to dwindle, as what's allowed into Gaza is merely a trickle. This week, partners working on food security tell us that 14 of them delivered just over 250,000 meals daily. This is much less than the 1 million meals that were being distributed daily at the end of April. Half of the community kitchens in Gaza have now been forced to stop cooking due to lack of supplies or because of displacement orders. OCHA tells us that yesterday Israeli authorities issued another displacement order, this time covering 54 neighborhoods across 3 governorates, North Gaza, Gaza, and Deir al-Balah. This is the second order issued for the same area, representing 1/3 of the Gaza Strip. Overall, since the renewed escalation of hostilities in March, the Israeli military issued 35 displacement orders, forcing more than 640,000 people to flee again. That's almost every 3rd Palestinian in Gaza. Our partners working in health tell us that facilities continue to be attacked. This morning, the Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator for the United Nations, Susanna Tkalets, with an OCHA team, visited the Al-Hali Hospital in Gaza City only hours after an attack that took place just after the facilities. Hospital management is telling us that 4 people were killed, and we understand that at least 3 of those were journalist colleagues of yours. OCHA stresses that once again, civilians and healthcare facilities must always be protected. Today, Mr. Kalitz and our humanitarian partners also visited Al-Shifa and Patients' Friends Society Hospital. The staff and partners stress the need for qualified specialists, supplies, and medical equipment. On the education front, colleagues on the ground report that as of today, hundreds of learning spaces have been forced to suspend their operations due to insecurity or lack of funding. More than 200,000 students and 5,000 teachers have been affected. And as you will recall this morning, in answer to questions from your colleagues, the Secretary General said that the forthcoming summit on the implementation of two-state solution said that he firmly believes that it is the duty of the international community to keep the two-state solution alive and materialize with the conditions to make it happen. We've shared the transcript with you. Turning to Ukraine, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that attacks across the country, which started last night, are continuing this morning, and they've killed and injured civilians. According to local authorities in Ukraine, more than 45 civilian casualties were reported. That's in addition to the widespread damage of homes and civilian infrastructure we've seen in Chernihiv, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Kherson, and the Sumy regions. In the city of Pruliki in Chernihiv region, it was heavily impacted. 5 people were killed in an overnight attack. In Kharkiv, at least 19 people were injured. Multiple residential buildings and a kindergarten and store were damaged. That's what local authorities are telling us. The regions of Kherson, Donetsk, and Sumy were also impacted, and airstrikes also killed a number of people. Hospitals, schools, and residential buildings were not spared and suffered damages. Meanwhile, more than 500 civilians were evacuated from frontline areas in the past 24 hours in Donetsk and Sumy regions. A hospital and school and residential buildings were also damaged in Kherson City and surrounding areas. We and our humanitarian partners are providing immediate assistance in the impacted regions, including construction material, hygiene kits, emergency shelters, and psychological support. The agricultural sector in Ukraine has suffered more than 83 billion US dollars in damages and losses since the wars started, and today thousands of families still lack basic tools and services to sustain production and protect their livelihoods, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about that from our colleague Paul Heslop. And the FAO says that since 2022, it has supported 250,000 rural families across Ukraine with vegetable seeds, animal feed, and cash vouchers. This afternoon, Security Council will convene at 3 p.m. To discuss briefing and consultations on Syria. Izumi Nakamitsu, our head of Office of Disarmament Affairs, will brief on that. We'll try to get you her remarks later today. Few international days to mark. Today's World Environment Day. In his message, the Secretary General says this day focuses on solutions to beat plastic pollution, adding that in 2 months, countries will come together to hammer out a new global treaty to end plastic pollution. We need an ambitious, credible, and just agreement this year, he said. Today is also the International Day for the fight against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Our seas and oceans are one of the planet's most important assets. Their uses need to be managed responsibly. On Saturday, we will mark World Food Safety Day. This year's theme is Food Safety, Science, and Action. And tomorrow is Russian Language Day, and we want to welcome our youngest Russian speaker in this room, Marina. And we'll take our questions from Edie. En anglais, s'il vous plaît. Yeah.
Thank you. Steph, does the Secretary General have any comment on President Trump's latest travel bans on and partial travel bans on a total of 19 countries?
Well, we've obviously seen the news. I think, as we've said before, it is the right of every country to decide how to control its borders and who they allow in. Our position has always been across the world is that whatever system is put in place is one that respects people's human dignity.
And on the killings of the 3 journalists at the hospital in Gaza, do you have any details on who they worked for?
No, I do not. Sinan.
Just a quick follow-up to Edie's question. You said like banning the countries, they have to like, if they are respecting the human dignity, it's fine. Do you think this decision is like respecting the human dignity?
I think I'll let you do the analysis. A lot of countries have put up more barriers recently. We've always said that migration is something that needs to be managed and managed properly in a way that respects the human dignity, the rights of those people who are moving sometimes at great risk to themselves to find a better life, but also managed in a way that is beneficial to both the countries of origin and the countries of destination. And that is doable, right? And there is a global compact for migration. It is doable. When it is not managed properly, it leads to situations where things are put in the hands of criminal gangs.
May I ask one more?
Of course.
We are going to have a new mayor in New York City this month, and Secretary General wouldn't say who he supports, but at least you can tell us, all we live in New York City, what's the expectation, Secretary General, is from the new mayor?
Well, I hate to correct you, Sam, we're going to have primaries first, right? Then there will be elections in November, so we will not know till November who the mayor of New York City is. I can tell you that New York City is a wonderful host city to this United Nations. The fact that the United Nations is headquartered in New York is anchored in the charter of the organization. We're in international institutions, but we're also a New York institution. So we hope to continue to have great relations with our host city. Can we talk about any other mayoral elections?
No, I got a quick follow-up on Trump's travel ban.
Yeah.
Could you please share what's going to happen with the current UN personnel? So
We understand from looking at the executive order that diplomats and G4 visa holders, UN staff, are exempt from this. The U.S. as host country, like other host countries of UN headquarters, have responsibilities, treaty-based responsibilities to facilitate the travel of UN personnel and delegates, and we understand that is included in the order that was issued, the executive order. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Steph. President Trump announced that he is thinking of using sanctions against both Russia and Ukraine to pressure them. Does the SG think that this is a good way of pressuring countries to get to the deal?
Look, in any conflict, we always feel the best, frankly, sometimes the solution to end a conflict is through negotiations, right? Yes, ma'am.
Does Secretary General have any comment on the recent phone call between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Trump?
Well, we believe that dialogue between the heads of states of the United States and the People's Republic of China is very important, given the links, right? The economic and and political relations between these two countries, these two important countries on the global stage. So we're always encouraged by dialogue. All right, anybody online?